I'm joined now on the line by our local politician, our local Member of Parliament, Dean Russell. Dean, welcome to the show.
Oh, thanks for having me on. I always enjoy being on the show.
Yeah, we want to get straight into it just because we're coming towards the end of the show. I want to talk about schools going back. Schools are going back this week. Gavin Williamson has been sort of umming and ahhing slightly. There's been mixed messages. I know the Labour Party have spoken about wanting exams to be pushed back next year. Whether that's feasible and logistically feasible, we're not sure at this point. What's your opinion on schools going back? Do you think that it's the right move in the current climate?
Yeah, I think it's essential, actually. I think young people have been hit really hard by COVID, not because of the virus itself, but because of missing their friends, missing face-to-face teaching from teachers. So I think it's essential, actually. And I think, you know, as kids go back this week and next week, they'll hopefully start to get back into a routine and start sort of being kids again, you know, and enjoying school and learning.
What about parents that have fears around the coronavirus? Because it's a natural worry to have with your kids going back into an environment where kids don't socially distance. It's hard to enforce that completely within a school. And I know that a lot of parents will say, well, as soon as term time starts, we always get sick because the kids bring back bugs. What would you say to those parents?
I completely understand concerns, I really do, but I know that schools across Watford have been working incredibly hard to make sure that they're following guidance, that and the guidance has been regularly updated, and I really say thank you to all the schools for sticking with us as we've been updating that guidance. But I know they've been working really hard to make sure that the safety measures are in place. And the reality is, when you look at statistics with regards young people, especially for young children, the cases are just so low in terms of them actually contracting COVID and catching it. It's so low that it's more beneficial for them to be at school because the risk isn't there. But
not necessarily with the kids catching it. It's the transmission. They can still carry it, can't they?
They can, but I think the key thing really is we're making sure that all the necessary measures are in place, and the schools have worked so hard to make sure they're in place to mitigate that risk as much as possible. The reality is we're still in a period where COVID's still out there. We don't have a vaccine yet, so the main thing at the moment is mitigating it and making sure people are following that 1 metre plus rule and doing everything that they can. And I know schools have been working incredibly hard to make sure that's the case.
We haven't spoken since the sort of exam fiasco with students getting results that they didn't necessarily deserve after not being able to sit their exams. How did you feel about that? Another, what's been described as government U-turn. I know you've said in the past that U-turns aren't necessarily a bad thing because it's the government saying, you know what, we might have got this wrong, let's make sure we get it right. But do you think this was a real mistake?
I think the government was really trying to do the right thing, which was to make sure that kids who hadn't sat exams could get results that were as close to what they would have got as they should have had. And sadly, that didn't work out, and I think the government very quickly acted on that. What I would say is that in Watford, throughout that whole period, I was working directly with several students who were risking missing their places because of the situation. And I'm really pleased to say I've had students who've been able to go to Cambridge now, that we've worked together, University of Birmingham, all over, and I think it's, you can't always make the right decision. You want to make the right decision, and the government was definitely trying to do the right thing. But as soon as we realised that it wasn't going to work out the way it should, we had to change tack. We had to do it quickly, and I can't tell you how many hours ministers have been working with me and all other MPs, no doubt, to make sure that students who were affected would get the best support that they could. And I'd say still to any student, if they're listening to this and they're having any problems, please get in touch. My email's dean.russell.mp@parliament.uk, and I'll do everything I can to support them. But so far, I've been working with the schools, working with students where I can directly, and thankfully we seem to have stemmed a lot of the issues that were there.
And just quickly before we finish, going forward in Watford, there's lots of fears of a second spike as we head into colder weather. Have you got a message for the people of Watford as we head into the winter?
Well, first of all, thank you. Watford, people across Watford have been incredible throughout this. Of course, there's been some issues with some people not following the rules and stretching what they can do, but the vast majority of people have been following guidance. Businesses have, schools have, and I think as we move forward, it's just still be vigilant. Make sure that you're keeping your mask on in shops where you can, or your face covering. Make sure you're keeping that distancing. As I've said before, the 1 metre plus rule is effectively saying, look, keep the 2 metres if you can, but the plus bit is to either wear a mask, or if there's a perspex screen in the business place, workplace and so on. So it's really just be vigilant. We're all doing our best to try and fight this, but it really relies on everybody taking part, and I think so far Watford has been incredible in making sure that that's the case, especially given the density and the urban nature of most of Watford. Actually, I feel really proud that we've managed to get through this without a local lockdown so far, but it doesn't mean that can't come, so it's just about please continue to be vigilant.
Right, Dean, we've got about 30 seconds left. You're meeting with Boris Johnson and Rishi Sunak today after Prime Minister's questions, is that right? Have you got anything on the agenda that you want to be talking to them about?
I didn't know you knew that, actually. But yeah, I mean, talking about what we're doing next, making sure that I'm feeding back what people are asking me and concerned about in Watford. My entire job at times is just making sure that government is making the right decisions for people in Watford and that they're heard. And so I will continue to be that spokesperson and continue to fight for them. And so far, I feel very proud that we've been able to. I've been able to speak to the very top of government throughout this crisis and be heard and make sure that we're getting results where we can.
Dean, thank you so much for joining us this morning.